Welcome back, everybody. This is Music Talk with Dave and Mike. I'm Dave.
And I'm Mike.
And this week, we are going to be reviewing the Allman Betts Band new CD, and it's called Bless Your Heart. And the album cover looks something like this. Hey.
Got
it on both sides in stereo.
Yeah.
It actually says in stereo on the top if you look, by the way.
Yeah.
So
it's actually a nice folding.
It's got a good fold. I think the front cover is hideous. I think it's a hideous front cover. I mean, and the back is, okay for a back, but I mean, that's the front, you know what I mean? It's got a flower, which, by the way, inside they give you the sticker of that flower. Not sure what you want to do with it, but there it is.
Yeah, it's the insignia down the bottom corner to
and it's on the CD also. And you just showed the gate cover there, so it's got their pictures and all the info on it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's pretty thorough with, like, one thing I will say I like about the album cover is they tell you when each person does the solo.
Right.
I think that's pretty neat. Even though most bands you could probably tell who's playing which solo, but in this situation, I mean, it's pretty neat because you got so many people in the band. So they do kind of talk about that. And another thing about this album, which surprised me after listening to it, was recorded at Muscle Shoals.
Yeah.
Except for the vocals, which you can tell by listening to it that the vocals were not recorded in the same place as the music. There's no doubt about it, and you can hear that while you're listening to it.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, just right off the bat, I will tell you I'm very disappointed in the CD. I was expecting more from an Allman Betts Band. When you're carrying the name, I mean, I'm not going to say that I was hoping to hear an Allman Brothers band, but I was hoping to hear something better than what we got on this CD.
Yeah, to me, the whole thing was too drudgy. No change in sounds.
No dynamics.
Drums sounded the same every song, and everything was mid-tempo.
I actually did not like the sound of the drums.
No. Well, that's a pretty popular thing, the detuned snare thing happening now. A lot of people are trying to see how low they can tune a snare, and the rattly sound, they're going for that.
But what I hated about that the most, though, Mike, is his shuffles sounded terrible with that sound.
Right.
Because, he's trying to do those shuffles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because you're like the king of the shuffle. I mean, it's world known that Mike is the shuffle king, right?
Yeah.
So I the whole time I'm listening to this and I'm thinking to myself, man, Mike's got to be dying listening to that terrible shuffle.
It just, I don't know. Nothing. I've tried listening to the album 3-4 different times, and every time I put it on, I get to about the 4th or 5th song, and I'm catching myself walking around doing other things. I'm just not paying attention to it. It's just background noise.
Well, we'll go ahead and do a real quick breakdown on it, and then I'll tell you my synopsis on this whole thing. First of all, Pale Horse Rider, I guess, they're maybe trying to imply some kind of Clint Eastwood thing in there. I don't know. But it was a very bad opener because it was so slow. And, right off the bat, it's boring, right?
It sounds like a movie soundtrack.
Yeah. And then you got Carolina Song, which is a decent song. But I tell you, I don't like any of the vocalists on this album at all. I mean, the first two were sung by Devin Allman, and I just didn't like his voice very much.
Yeah.
Then you come to track 3, which is King Crawler, which, I mean, come on, man. It's a typical crawl back to your girl thing, standard same words you hear in every blues song, which this one's sung by, Dwayne Betts, and not much better on vocals. And then you have Ashes of My Lovers, and you know what that sounded like.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was another, movie TV theme song.
Yeah, well, they had Kim Wilson on harp.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't even really say a whole lot about Kim's harp playing.
Yeah.
It didn't really turn my head, you know.
And the only song the best song to me on the whole album was the fifth one, and it was called Savannah's Dream. And mainly, I think I liked it the best because there was no vocals; it was instrumental.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, it's sad to say it that way, but I mean, honestly,
thing that got me about it was is the keys opened up with the with I guess Fender Rhodes or Wurlitzer,
right, right.
and it just sounded like he was doing a little calypso rhythm there.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, when the song breaks loose, the rhythm section comes in, and they're doing a 6/8, which is like whipping post,
Well,
pretty much, you know, and
exactly what it is.
it was real confusing. It was, to me, it was confusing. It's like, okay, I got all set up for this calypso thing, and then all of a sudden I'm into whipping post,
and that carries out through the rest of the song. It's just that
right.
whipping post. It's like they took the solo out of whipping post and extended it to 12 minutes.
Yep.
And that's what this song is. After the intro, you had a cool little intro, and I was thinking, man, this is going pretty good. And then
honestly, after that, I really didn't give each song much time at all. I just listened to it and just shook my head.
Yeah.
I don't really have any comments about the rest of the CD.
Well, I mean, we'll go on. I'll go through them, and you can, if you want to pipe in on anything.
Yeah.
The next one was Airboats and Cocaine, which is totally makes no sense on this album.
Yeah.
And they both sing, right? So already I'm not enjoying Devin's vocals. And then I got Dwayne's vocals. I'm not enjoying those. I got a good instrumental finally that I can actually listen to. And then they come back from that and they both sing. And now I'm like, great. Now I got both of them singing, which was bad. And then seventh song, Southern Rain. I like the song. I just don't like the vocals again.
Right.
Rivers Run was very back to, Betts singing, and it was just not good. And Magnolia Road was just average.
Right.
And then you got, Should We Ever Part, which is a good song. It's got some really good guitar work in it. Had a nice harmony, Allman Brothers type sound, but then it comes in with the vocals. And, and then the Doctor's Daughter, they actually had the bass player sing, right? And
yeah,
I was hoping maybe that I'd get a better vocal, right?
Yep.
And it's the same. I mean, it wasn't any good. And then Much Obliged and Congratulations ended up. And I mean, honestly, Mike, I think you may have some good songs here if someone else sings them or someone else redoes them, and don't put them all in one album.
What I took from this whole thing was, I don't know if they were in charge of production or anything at any point.
They were the co-producers.
I don't know. I didn't read. Honestly, I really, listening to it, I just wasn't interested at all.
Yeah.
In the whole thing.
Well, it was very boring.
I just looked at the whole thing, and I'm thinking to myself, there wasn't a lot of time put into this.
No.
Like I say, the drum tracks all sounded the same. There was no change in sound. I mean, they didn't even pick up another snare drum and put it in there.
Nope.
No, it's same snare sound.
Well, that's kind of why I said I was surprised that it was recorded at Muscle Shoals.
Right.
Because usually you get something from Muscle Shoals and it's, it's good sounding.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, they got the good old bebop kit sitting over there. Why didn't he sit down on that?
I don't know, man.
Crack a couple on it. But my point is like this all, okay, you're thinking Allman Betts, okay? And just like you said, I wasn't expecting to hear the Allman Brothers.
Right.
But I didn't put this on expect to hearing music that to me sounded like you were trying to sell it to the 70s outlaw country crowd.
Yeah. That's a good
these were demos. These weren't even finished products.
And that's the thing. I mean, and they recorded the music at Muscle Shoals, and then they went and recorded the vocals at a place called Sawhorse Studios, right?
Yep.
And the vocals, the high ends were cracking really bad on it. There was no EQ on it. And their voice is not very good. So they could have tried to do something with it, with some kind of effect, maybe. The thing about this whole album is bad vocals. I mean, the whole album has bad vocals, and I mean, I just can't help it but say it. The drum sound was terrible. I mean,
one thing that I'm wondering about, though, they've titled this Blessings. So I'm wondering if this is some significant I don't know, tribute or something to something that we're not privy to or something.
I don't think so, because the words don't really mention it. I mean, you know, maybe on Southern Rain kind of had something that sounded like it might be talking about his dad a little bit, but the only thing I can figure, they call it Bless Your Heart, right? And that's what you tell somebody when it's bad, but you don't want to hurt their feelings, right?
Right.
So that's the perfect name for this album, because it's like, oh, y'all made an album. Well, bless your heart.
Yeah.
Right.
What, want a glass of tea?
Right. Bless your heart. You made an album. You know, it's better than me just saying, man, you made a bad album.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I don't know.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I listened to it twice, and I tried to get through it a third time, and I couldn't. I mean, I had a hard time getting through the whole thing twice.
Well, the first time I listened to it, I had to stop it halfway through. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Second time I listened to it, it's just like the third time. I got about halfway point, and then I caught myself getting up, moving around, and fiddling with other things. You know, I just don't understand it, because I mean, it was produced by a guy named Matt Ross Spang, right? And he's produced a lot of stuff. Right.
And believe it or not, he was an engineer on Rival Sons' Hollow Bones album.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the guy knows what he's doing, but what he did on this record, I have no idea. But anyway, I'm not even going to talk much more about it, other than I'm going to give it a 4. And that's a generous 4.
Right.
Really. I mean, I really wanted to give it a 3, but I'm going to give it a 4 because there was some good moments on guitar. That's it. That's the only thing I can tell you. I think it's a very bad record, very bad CD. I would not recommend it to any of my friends. You know,
I'm going to give it a 3.5, because I'm going to tell you right now, all these drum tracks really, well, I can't say all of them. I think the drum tracks would have fit on a couple of the songs, but they really needed to target those songs. They needed to do something movement-wise with the drums.
Yeah. I mean, 3.5 is good.
I'm real disappointed with it.
3.5 is good. The only reason, you know, I give it a 4 because I got this with it. I got a sticker.
Well, I got one too. Like I said,
yeah.
I'm probably going to peel it off where I stuck it. But I know of a working musician. I mean, I'm still in touch with him every day practically, that deserved this same shot.
Yeah.
You know, and these guys are there, and they're taking up the space where somebody else that's working hard could be using it.
I'll be honest with you, and you probably have too, but I've thrown tracks away better than these.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I've written songs and threw them away that were, if not better, at least comparable to what I heard on this thing.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm working on a couple tracks right now that I'm not happy with because they don't work together like this CD did. There's parts in it where, like you're saying, the drum's the same in every song, and it's like you need to change something. You know, I don't know.
Put tambourine in there. Do something.
Somebody else to sing would be nice.
Right.
I don't know. That was just bad for me. I gave it a 4. Mike gave it a 3.5. You guys can tell us what you think about it.
Yeah, I don't really have too much more to say.
Yep, me neither. So that's going to bring us to a new segment for the show. And this new segment is called What's in Your Collection? Yes. And what we're going to do with this segment is we're going to take an album or a CD that's in our collection, and we're going to go track by track, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to give you a little bit of the history that we know of, Obviously, these albums and stuff, you can go research on Google and find out anything you want. But I'm going to just go over some stuff that I remember hearing about it as I was growing up. And I did some little research and some interviews with the band.
A little fact checking. Yeah.
Yeah. Wrote down a few things that I thought was pretty cool that they were talking about. So the album that we're going to do today is Led Zeppelin's fourth album,
Zozo.
Which brings me to the very first topic, actually, because what you just said was Zoso, right? Well, this album was really untitled because they wanted to have an untitled album on purpose, right?
Yep.
So Jimmy Page said that they used to call it Four Symbols. That's what they used to call it.
It was called Four Symbols.
Rooms.
And it was also just called Zeppelin 4.
Yeah.
But there were no names put on it, no song credits. There wasn't even a catalog number on the original cover.
No, that's the same way on the reproduction too. Look, there's nothing on here. They got a little sticker for Swan Song right there, but other than that, there's not one bit of writing on it at all.
Yep.
So, and they did it because they got tired of the critics putting them down. Right. So they figured if they just put an album out without their name on it, they couldn't put them in a box. You look at the record, you don't know what kind of record it is. You don't even know what kind of music you're going to get.
Yep. So, that's right.
And they were just fed up, And there's a couple rumors too about the significance of the picture. Of course, that the story is they were in a thrift store, right? And Plant saw the picture in the thrift store and bought it. And then, of course, they kind of felt the burden of the record companies and the critics, and they put this burden on the back of this, kind of resembled the burden they were carrying, right?
He's a hermit.
Yeah. So he's a hermit, and, he's carrying a load. And they felt like they were getting pressured by critics and everybody else, that they were carrying a load, and they were like, screw it, this is the way we feel. And then, of course, if you open it up, you get to see, modern civilization. So you're kind of going from, old to new, basically.
And the reality with that whole thing is, with that whole cover photo and all that, actually what it was, Robert Plant went to an antique store. He found that painting, that man carrying the bushel on his back. And the way they came up with the album cover, he found a house that was being wrecked. Walked up, hung the painting on that wall, and they just took a picture of it. And that's the background you see. And that's why when you open it up and you see that tower, that's literally the house is being demolished.
Right. Yeah. And they kind of wanted to show it as a representation of like out with the old and in with the new modernization.
Right. Exactly. Stuff, so yeah, exactly.
Kind of, the typical light dark thing that Page was always into,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they said they always called it Four Symbols. It's been called Rooms. It's been called Zoso, Zeppelin 4. I always call it Led Zeppelin's fourth album.
Yeah.
That's what I call it. So, anyway.
That one with Black Dog on it?
yeah, that one. And that sound you hear at the beginning, Jimmy Page says, was his guitars warming up.
Yeah, well, what it was is it was, because I read an excerpt too of part of that, what they did recording wise. And they did like 3 or 4 guitar tracks on that in the beginning. And so to line those tracks up, Page would sit there and scrape his strings. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
And all 3 or 4 of those tracks, I forget how many it was, but when they pulled them together, what you hear at the very beginning, they decided to leave that on there because it was a great way to open the song up instead of it just being a dry vocal.
Yeah. And plus, you get all these people that say, oh, it sounds like a dog panting, like Black Dog or something like that. It's like, that's not really what it is. But if that's what you want to think. And of course, the song was, it was a John Paul Jones riff that he came up with. And then Page was talking about it too, that he said that when they did it, they originally did it as, no breaks in it. But then he came up with the idea that he wanted it to sound like Oh Well from Fleetwood Mac. So that's when they said, let's do some vocals by themselves, then bring in the riff, then vocals kind of like Oh Well.
Right.
So that's where that came from. So that was pretty cool. And then, of course, the name of the song has always been a controversy, right? Because there's nothing about a black dog in the words. And there's 2 things. I actually saw Simon Kirk from Bad Company talking about this, and he said they named it because there was a black dog had died in one of the bedrooms at Headley Grange. But that's the only person I've ever heard say that. Everybody else always says it was about a black dog that used to show up and they would pet it and play with it, a black lab.
Everything I read was saying the same thing. It's about a black lab, older, full of character. Yeah. Said he was still fertile. He was running out and taking care of business.
Right. Well, that's the thing. And Simon Kirk's the only one I ever said that there was about a dog that had died in one of the bedrooms. So, I mean, I've never heard it out of any of the band's mouth.
Right. I think he's relating that more to the fact that that place was known for a lot of death. There was I guess at one time it had actually burnt down. It was a cathedral, and there were a lot of people that were in there, and they died. And then it was rebuilt as a mansion.
Yeah.
And they talk about the ghosts and everything in there. Yeah, and I could see where that could get mixed up.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, who knows? Maybe a dog did die in there.
Right. You know, I mean, they probably all sat around, you know, Simon Kirk was in the Swan Song thing, right?
Yeah. So they were, he was part of that. Yeah.
So they probably all sitting around drinking, talking to crap all the time. You know? Yeah. Who knows what was said? But the one thing I do want to point out before we move on to the next song is, if you listen closely, because we used to do this song, if you listen real close, every time right before they do that lick, you'll hear a drumstick click. And that's where it signals to play that
right.
So every time he does this, you know, hey mama, and then right after he says the last word, you'll hear click, and that's Bonham hitting that stick saying click, da 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 da. So that's pretty cool. I don't know how many people know that, but you listen closely, you'll hear it.
Yeah,
because that's how we used to do it. And it's like, how are we going to know when to come in? And our drummer said, well, if you listen close, John Bonham clicks the stick. I'm like, okay, click the stick and we're in, you know? So that's how we did it.
Well, I mean, you got to have somebody keeping time. It's like, one thing that I do on stage is I keep chopping that hi-hat during the break. If it's broke down, I'm still counting those 4s or those 8s or whatever.
Well, you know? The hi-hat's a bass player's best friend anyway, because the drummers are doing all kinds of stuff, but generally their hi-hat remains constant.
Yep, exactly. So, unless you got a double bass drum player, you know.
Which John Bonham says, why have 2 bass drums when you can do it with 1?
That's because Plant and Page took his other one away.
I don't think he actually needed it, man. I mean, that guy could do
he was too busy.
1 foot.
Well, if you listen, and this is another tangent we could go into, but if you listen to the way Bonham plays, he's still playing like he's got double bass.
Yeah.
But what you're hearing is so it's so funky at times. You know, it's like
even on Black Dog, if you listen to the footwork on it, where he's doing that, you know,
right.
You know.
Yeah.
And, you know, Carmine actually said something. Carmine Apsey said something about him one time and said, you know, man, that foot. And he's like, well, I got it from you. And he pulled up an old Vanilla Fudge record and showed him. He's like, you did it right here on this song. And he's like, I have no idea, you know? So,
yeah.
But there was also a thing, I think it was Plant. I think Robert Plant had said one time that they were all hanging out at somewhere, and Jimi Hendrix came up to John Bonham and said, man, you have a foot like a rabbit. Because it was just always, you know, like a rabbit, you know.
Right.
So, and, you know, you listen to his foot, and it's super fast.
And it's all done on a Speed King pedal. Ain't nothing fancy about it. Just and that's
you can even hear it squeaking sometimes in some of the songs.
Well, that's what I used to use was Speed King all the time. You know, I didn't start changing around until Tama bought Camco, and I tried out that Camco pedal, and I'm like, well, I'll try this, and I used it for about 10 years.
Yeah.
But the Speed King, and honestly, they got it back out again. I'm honestly thinking about buying another one.
Yeah, a lot of people used them back then, man. I mean, they were the pedal, you know.
Oh yeah.
You know? So we'll go to the second track. and that was Rock and Roll.
Yep.
I mean, I've probably played this song a million times in a band.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you have. But it's
Well,
basically just a 12-bar blues, you know.
Let me tell you something about that song, though. Robert Plant did the vocals on that song. 2 takes.
Yeah.
2 takes. Second take, that was it.
I believe a lot of this album was done and quickly like that.
Yeah.
But the song actually came because they were working on 4 sticks and they were
just
frustrated.
jamming.
Yeah. And then Bonham just started jamming on Keep Her Knocking from Little Richard. Was basically, he's like, you know what, screw it. And then Page just kind of came up with the riff. And from there, it just took it all on its own, man. That's how it became to be.
Yeah.
You know? And it had, actually, they didn't really have a lot of it's funny because this album, they had 2 people come on this album, special guests, right? And they never had special guests until they did like orchestras later in their career. But you had Ian Stewart on piano on this, which I was surprised because I actually thought all along that it was John Paul Jones.
Yeah.
It was really Ian Stewart from the Rolling Stones.
Right. Ian Stewart and God, I can't think of her name now, the girl vocalist.
Yeah, Sandy Denny. She's on the next song.
She actually had her own symbol. They had her pick out a symbol too. And if you look on your album jacket, it was 3 triangles put together at points.
Yeah, they're all upside down. Yeah.
And they used it as an asterisk.
Yep.
In the credits on her name.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that brings us to that song, actually, Battle of Evermore.
Oh yeah.
And it was Robert Plant's idea to get Sandy Denny on it. She was in another band. I can't remember what they were called now. I had it written down, but I left it at work. It was something like Fairpoint Way or something like that. But she was in a folk band, and I think Plant had heard her a few times and wanted to bring her in on this. And basically, what this is you know, Plant's the narrator, Sandy Denny's like the town crier. You know, the song really came about because Jimmy Page saw John Paul Jones's mandolin laying around, and he picked it up. It's the first time he ever played a mandolin.
And wrote the song.
Yeah. And just started plucking on it. He wasn't really sure of the tuning, but then he started to figure it out and actually wrote this song the very first time he ever played a mandolin, you know.
Also, too, they were all into The Hobbit.
They were.
And that was Battle of Evermore was about one of the battles in The Hobbit, you know.
Yeah. There was also a book he was reading too at the time about, I want to say, Scotland.
Yeah, it could have been.
And he threw in the Hobbit references also, because you know the ring wraiths ride in black and all that. But yeah, so I think he mixed a little bit of the book and the Hobbit there, because a lot of their stuff does have, you know, they're always referencing the Hobbit.
Well, one thing that puzzles me, I remember when this album came out and Zeppelin 2 was out, and all of a sudden there was a lot of talk about putting a movie together about The Hobbit, which through their music is the reason why I found out about The Hobbit, but then all this talk about it. And I had heard rumor that Zeppelin did a lot of songwriting based around that, hoping their music would get used in the movie.
I can believe that. And, you know, because at the time, like you're saying, there was no Hobbit or Lord of the Rings movies.
Right.
You know, I don't even think the cartoon animation was out yet at that point, because you're talking 1971, right?
Right.
So, yeah, because this album came out in November of 71. So at the time, I mean, if you didn't know the books, then a lot of these references you wouldn't get.
Yep.
So, I mean, fortunately, I had read the books. Of course, I've always been a Zeppelin fan, so it was nothing for me. But people that, you know, didn't know the Hobbit back then really, you know, didn't really get it until afterwards, you know.
Right.
And you're right. You know, they do, you know, Battle of Evermore does talk quite a bit about it. So,
yeah.
So the fourth song comes up is Stairway to Heaven. And I mean, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
I've got a few things I just want to talk about on it, though, real quick, is that, well, you know, John Paul Jones played a recorder on it. you know, so that's what you hear. He's playing the recorder. But the thing that people always get mixed up on this is they think that Jimmy Page played that double neck guitar, which I brought my double neck out tonight just for because he's associated with the double neck. But anyway, he actually played a 12-string Fender on that. He didn't get the double neck until later because he wanted to do the song live and he couldn't do it either all on a 12-string or all on a 6. So the double neck guitar that he's so closely related to didn't come about until afterwards. So he actually played a 12-string Fender song. But the main thing that I've never really realized before until I heard Jimmy Page talking about it, because Page was a studio musician from age 14 on, right? And he said that when you're in a studio, if you mess up, they kick you out back then. And it was always tempo. You had to always be tempo. And he said when he went into this song, he wanted to break the tempo rule. So if you listen to every verse and every chorus, the tempo speeds up a little bit each time. It's not the same tempo. When they're doing the slow acoustic part, it speeds up the next time they get to that part. And then the next time they get to that. So the whole song gradually gets faster in each part, which I didn't realize it. And I've played it many times on record and live, but I've never really paid much attention to it because we've always just, in a live situation, things never are the tempo on a record anyway. But, you know, once I started listening to it after I heard that, I was like, wow, I never really paid much attention to it. But when you listen to it the next time, you'll notice every verse and every chorus is a little quicker than the last one. And it gets to that climax at the end after the fanfare, the guitar solo. And then, you know, of course, he ends it with the vocal. But anyway, there's not much that we really need to talk about on Stairway to Heaven. Everybody knows it. I just thought that was pretty cool because I really didn't pay much attention to the tempo thing. And I wanted to break that double neck thing because everybody always associates them playing the double neck on that song. It wasn't done that way in the studio. So anyway, so song 5, Misty Mountain Hop, which is another Hobbit reference.
Another Hobbit reference.
Right. But the song really doesn't have anything to do with the Hobbit. The song is actually about a legalizing marijuana rally.
Yep.
And, you know, a lot of people got arrested and definitely reflects that in the song. So, but Page actually came up with the riff, you know, with the, you know, he did that on the guitar, in which they actually started doing on the Mellotron, right? Is that what it's called? That John Paul Jones is playing.
Yeah, Mellotrons, yep.
But then Jones, which they call him Jonesy, then Jonesy actually did the chords in the chorus part. He came up with that, but the original riff was Jimmy Page just jammed it out and they played it, and then all of a sudden Jones come in and just put his parts in. Basically, that's how that song was done. Then they wrote the words, you know, relating to a legalized pot rally where the cops were busting everybody, which is a great song. I love that song, man. I mean, this whole album is great. But yeah, other than the name, it has nothing to do with The Hobbit, which is kind of odd. But I mean, he does say, I'm packing my bags for the Misty Mountain where the spirits fly and all that. But that's, you know, probably because they were all high, you know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how else do you get to Hobbit land?
Right, exactly. You want your spirits to fly, right?
Yeah.
So now we get to track 6. And this is one that you probably want to talk a little bit more about, but this is 4 Sticks.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, well, you know, John Bonham, and I had heard these stories over and over again. They kept going over the song and he was playing it, you know, with just a single set of sticks.
Right.
And it was just getting frustrated, which brings us back to, you know, rock and roll. Yeah, because he was frustrated inventing, and that's how they came with rock and roll. Right. But what he wound up doing, he grabbed a second pair of sticks. And the name of the song is 4 Sticks, and it means exactly what it says. Yeah. He's using 4 sticks. And he was mad when he played this song. Yeah. But when he grabbed the 2 sets of sticks, had 4 sticks in his hands, first take, that was what they took. Yeah. That was done in one take with 4 sticks. And
And Page talks about that too, because he's like, man, I didn't know what I wanted to do with this song. I couldn't get it right. I just couldn't make anything work. And once he started playing it with the four sticks, it all came together.
Yep.
You know, and then and the thing about it, and if I'm not mistaken, I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but doesn't it go from like a 5/8 to a 6/8 time? Doesn't it switch back and forth on here? Because I think the beginning's at a 5/8, and then when it gets to the middle break where they do that Middle Eastern Indian type music sound, it goes to a 6/8. Am I right?
Well,
I think
actually,
there's two different times.
I think, yeah, I mean, you could break it down like that, but I think if you just count it out in straight fours, that it works out in a round. It's like a round, you know, the way.
Yeah, you could do like a 5/4 and get
right,
there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And still come out right in the end. Yeah.
Yeah. I think as a bass player's mind, I'm going to do it in 5/8, and then I'm going to change up to a 6/8.
Right.
So,
And
because that's how my count's going to be. The drums are going to be whatever they are, and they're going to circle back. So
yeah, but the thing is like using the four sticks. That was something that was done a long time ago, back in the old blues and jazz days.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Louis Bellson was a master of using four sticks during drum solos and stuff. And then Bonham used it, and I'm not really sure who used it first at this point, but also Steve Gadd used it on Late in the Evening, you know, for Paul Simon, you know. And if you watch him do it live at Central Park, you'll see him. He's back there playing cymbals and all that stuff, and he's got four sticks in his hands, you know.
So let me ask you this: do you have your sticks by you? If you were playing with four sticks, how would you hold them in your hand? So I know you got your sticks there. So show me how you would do that.
You're just holding them tip to tip, the natural bevel of the sticks. And when you hit the drums, I mean, you could do it like this to where you're hitting all four sticks down, but really, and it depends on the approach, but I really believe that Bonham is using it for force. And in the interim, you wind up with a click when you're hitting.
You're kind of getting a rebound, right?
Well, as you're hitting, you hit the drum and the top stick smacks your impact stick. So you can do it like that, or you can spread them out like this, and then it sounds like you got two drummers hitting everything, you know.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, the way you're talking about with him smacking it on top, you can almost hear it, and it almost sounds like it's making the stick rebound again.
Right.
Drum itself. So it's like a do, you know.
Right. You know, but while he's doing there to get that effect, that's actually a triplet. It's like a, you know, you got, you know.
No, I just wonder how much of it is just the stick on top rebounding back. You know what I mean?
Well,
if it's possible.
what you got to look at is with his feet when he's doing this stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
His feet are his right foot and his hi-hat foot. They're doing, you know, and he's got blood. You know, it's just I wish I was sitting on a set of drums. I could show you. It's really simple to do.
Yeah.
It really is.
What's hard to do? You could show us a piece of it, but we couldn't show the exact thing, or else we get hit by a copyright.
But the whole thing is that the thing that brings the beauty out in it is the fact that there's four sticks. Bonham was mad trying to figure out how to make the song different and sound good.
Yeah.
And they said he was pounding those drums.
Yeah.
And he's already a pounder.
Right.
So he's using two sets of sticks and really clubbing these drums.
And they probably already played the song like 5 times that day, and he was like, "That's it, I've had it."
Yeah, I'm done.
If you don't get it on this take, that's it.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, I was just wondering about that, how you actually would hold them and how you're getting the sound with them, because I was thinking maybe more like a mallet, like you would play on like a glockenspiel.
Yeah, well, I mean, after a while, that would get to where it kills your fingers, man. Your finger would be so sore.
Especially as hard as he is.
Right. It's a big difference between playing vibes and xylophone
Yeah.
versus beating on a set of drums. I mean, you're literally pounding those drums trying to get sound out of them.
Right. Right.
And especially at a rock volume, you know.
So yeah. Well, that'll bring us up to the seventh song, which is Going to California.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of came up with that when he was just kind of noodling around late that night, which is, you know, the whole point of them going to Headley Grange is to do, and I think we talked about this with the Dead Daisies. They actually wanted to live and eat and sleep. Everybody wanted to be together so that they could stay creative and be a family and a band, and you know.
Well, the other thing was too, which, well, I'll hold off till we get to that song. But anyway.
Yeah. But Going to California was basically, you know, you got Page was playing that guitar line, and then of course John Paul Jones does the mandolin on it. A couple of cool things that I found out about it was one, which I had already known about, was they kind of wrote it because they liked Joni Mitchell a lot, right? So Joni Mitchell had a song called "I Had a King." So in that one part where it says, "Find a queen without a king," they say she plays guitar and cries and sings. That's basically talking about Joni Mitchell.
Yep.
Which we've heard about pretty much all of our lives, right? But the thing that I didn't realize was they recorded most of the stuff in Headley Grange, right? Mm-hmm. And they mixed it at Sunset Studios in California. Well, when they were getting off the plane to go to the studio, there was an earthquake.
Right.
So when they go to that part, the valley's starting to tremble and shake. Mm-hmm. It was actually writing about the earthquake that had happened when they landed.
Right.
So I didn't know that. That was new to me.
Yeah, that was part of Jimmy Page was talking about. He was sitting in the control room when they were doing the mix down, and that was the first earthquake he had ever felt.
Yeah.
In his life, you know.
So they kind of put that in there. I thought that was pretty interesting. And he's like, true story. It really happened. It was an earthquake.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I mean, they weren't too far from where Joni was living there in Laurel Canyon. You know,
right
there with Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and all of them, you know.
Well, I mean, they were all at Sunset Sound, Sunset Sound Studios. Sound like last week, right? I can't get the words out.
Right.
So that takes us to track 8, When the Levee Breaks. And I'm sure there's a lot we need to talk about on this one. So I'll let you go ahead and start this one off.
Well, this is one that actually I was reading an interview with Jimmy Page, and he said he didn't know how they would ever reproduce this song live because they had a lot of reverse recording on it as far as leading into like guitar lines and the harmonica line in it. There was actually, if you listen to it, you hear the echo before the harp actually starts playing.
Right. Yeah. He called it a reverse echo effect. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is too, with Bonham's drums, that's a natural sound that was happening. That was done in the foyer of that studio, which used to be a cathedral.
Right.
3 stories high, stone walls, everything. And all they did was use ambient miking with his drums.
Well,
and that's the problem right there. And not only that, the reverse echo that they would have to overcome to even try to do the song live.
Well, I actually, first I want to say it's originally a song that everybody always says is Memphis Minnie, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they never credit Kansas Joe McCoy. I want to give Kansas Joe McCoy a shout out too, because they always say Memphis Minnie, and that's over. But anyway, I saw an interview with Andy Johns, and Andy Johns was the engineer, right? And everybody always wonders how did Bonham do that bass drum thing, right? Well, the truth is, he used 2 biodynamic M160 microphones halfway up the banister.
Right.
And that's how they got the sound. But then he ran it through a Benson Echo Rec delay. So you're hearing a delay also.
Yeah.
So that echo you hear is not from the cathedral itself. The sound of the drums is, because they only use 2 mics on that drum
Right,
set.
right. That's it. That's all they needed.
But when you hear that drum, you're actually hearing an echo. There's a delay on it. And you can, if he pulled the delay off, it would just sound like you playing the drum.
Yeah, and here's the thing too, and this is where a lot of drummers really mess up on trying to duplicate that song. There's no duplicating it without miking your drums and putting delay on it.
Exactly.
Because you cannot sit there and go, da, da,
right.
Da, da.
So that's always the big misconception, because everybody always thinks that Bottom's doing the da, da, cha, cha, da,
right. No,
but
it's just
not.
a very, very simple beat.
It is. It is. And you know, I know it's the biggest argument you'll ever find online about it too. It wasn't a delay. He never used a delay. There was a delay. I'm telling you right now, there was a delay on it. So
yeah,
the argument is mute. The guy that engineered it even said it. So
right.
The sound, which is a great sound on its own, was because of where it was.
Right. Well, they did, and it's just like on the Rival Son. I mean, not the Rival Son, but the Dead Daisies album.
Right.
They went into every room and planned. They probably spent a week at least dealing with the studio.
Right.
Walking into every room. Okay, where are we going to put the drums?
Yeah.
Where are we going to get the best sound for this song?
Well,
you know, and that's where it shows. See, to me, that's where it shows in recording processes.
Yeah.
When you get the ultimate sound, when you want to deal with high fidelity audiophile sounds, that's where it really tells the story.
Right.
And I know people go, well, I don't care. I just listen to my music in the car. Well, you know what? I do care, because I love high-end sound. Yes. And I want to know what's going on. I want to feel like I'm there.
Yeah.
I want to be immersed and standing in the middle of that room.
And you know, the thing about this album is most of it was recorded live.
Yeah.
And that's what I love, man. I love this live sound. And I hate when everything's digital, pieced together, Pro Tools, whatever. I hate that. I love this old, we're going to get in the room and we're all going to play.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I prefer it. Cool too, because if you listen to When the Levee Breaks in the headphones at the end there, when they're doing what they call, I guess it's sort of a fade out, even though they do resolve it. He said that him and Andy Johns was in there and they were twisting all these pans and stuff. So when you're listening, all these instruments are swirling around, but the vocals are remaining in one place. So they didn't touch the vocals, but all the instruments and all the noise going on under it is swirling around back and forth. And then they resolve it at the end. But yeah, he did talk about doing something like that. And back then, it won't like now. I mean, back then you actually had to have hands on board. You know, you were panning and you were pushing, you know.
What I've got to say is, when you listen to Zeppelin, go from Zeppelin 1 to Zeppelin 2 to Zeppelin 3, you have got 3 different approaches and sound.
Completely different. Completely.
And then they come up with Zeppelin 4.
Right.
There you go. And then Houses of the Holy. And
Physical.
Oh my God, No Quarter. I'm going to tell you something right now. That song, No Quarter, just drives me crazy the way they did that song. It's just so unbelievable, you know.
You know, it's weird because I know I'm going to sound strange saying this, and everybody's going to be like, you drank one too. But sometimes Zeppelin has a way of bringing songs like out of the mystic, you know?
Yeah.
Like Battle of Evermore, for instance.
Right.
I mean, I feel like I'm at a campfire in the medieval days of, you know, of yore, right? And just like No Quarter, like you're saying, it's like that song just wraps, you get so enveloped in that song. It's like you're flying through the universe almost.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I mean, it just envelops you and you become a part of the song, especially if what you're doing is sitting down and really are immersing yourself into the song.
Yeah.
You become a part of it. And
Yeah.
there's not many albums out there that you could do that with.
No.
I mean, you can't take a Grand Funk song and go, I'm going to lay down on the bed with headphones and just crank it and become immersed. Right. I will enjoy it. Believe me, I'm going to love it.
Right.
But it's not the same thing.
No.
It doesn't take you to a different plane.
Exactly. It's like you're living the story.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. And I mean, and then you get into Physical Graffiti.
What an album.
There were so many songs on that album that I'm never tired of hearing them, you know.
And I think a lot of Physical Graffiti was songs that were left over out of certain sessions, right?
Yeah, off the Houses of the Holy and off of
this one. They actually said Night Flight came from this era.
Right. Mm-hmm. There are 3 songs.
Down by the Seaside, I believe, is one.
Yep. Yep.
And I really can't remember what the third one was, but I definitely know that those 2 were out of this session.
Yeah, but here's the other thing too. Okay, take Houses of the Holy and Physical Graffiti. Mm-hmm. Well, Houses of the Holy didn't have the song Houses of the Holy.
Right.
That was on Physical Graffiti.
I mean, go figure, right? So, and it's okay because they did it, and it's okay.
It made you talk about it.
It definitely did. And then, of course, you know, you had Into the Outdoor.
Yeah.
Right. Which totally was a different sound. Basically, that was John Paul Jones and Plant because of all the stuff that was happening at the time.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Presence was, to me, I mean, man, they were really going in a direction when they got to Presence, you know, Achilles' Last Stand.
Oh, my gosh.
T for 2, stuff like that. Or is it T for 1? I think it's T for 1. Wow. I mean, let me tell you, if you don't have Zeppelin 4, I mean, there's something wrong with you. Go get it.
Yeah.
Zeppelin 4. And I want to do a shout out real quick to Vinyl Days in Virginia Beach. I went and picked this up today. I called them up. They had it, saved me one. I had to have this. I've had this for years. I had an old ripped up copy and I wanted a new, this has all been remastered. Put it on today. And you know, Mike, you have a point when it comes to these records sometimes because, I mean, I listen to CDs a lot, but, man, when I put this record on, it just kind of surrounded the whole house, man.
Oh, yeah. That's why I'm getting back into buying the vinyl, man. And, you know, I'm constantly looking at ways to making my turntable sound better. I've upgraded the needle and the cartridge on it, put a better preamp on it.
And, you know, here's man. This is the Hermit from the Tarot.
The Hermit.
The Tarot card. And, you know, you don't get this in a CD anymore, right?
Well, see, to me, that's Gandalf.
Well, that's what everybody always thought. But if you look at the Tarot card, it is actually the actual. But you know what? You can call it Gandalf. I mean, there's a little village, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's all good. Yeah. And I love, you know, I'm telling you, dude, it's like I was a teenager again. I opened this up today and I'm like, man, I miss records, right? Yep. I miss these gatefolds. I miss having everything huge where I can actually read it, you know, even though they didn't put a lot of information on this one. Not a good album if you want to read because there's not really much on it. But they did give you the insert, which I believe, you know, tell me if I'm mistaken, but didn't this used to be what held the album? Yeah.
Yep.
So now they just put it in as an insert. There's your words to Stairway to
Heaven. Yeah. Well, like a lot of my albums now that I've bought again, and even with the Joe Cocker, Mad Dogs and Englishmen, I just acquired that one.
Mm-hmm.
It's just full of information. It's a double album.
Yep. And you know, with these remasters, and this one was actually remastered by Jimmy Page himself. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they are just super sounding. It's great. Oh, yeah. It's great, man. I mean, I can't encourage anybody, you know, you got to get that one for your collection. So,
but you know, again, talking about, I think one of to me, my favorite of all time of all the Zeppelin songs is off of Zeppelin 2, and it's Ramble On.
Rambalone's a great
I
song.
love that song, man.
And you know what it references?
Oh yeah.
It references The Hobbit.
Oh yeah.
You know? Yeah. That was a well put together song. The bass line was incredible on that one.
The whole song is incredible. The arrangement, the way they paced it. I mean, everything, man. It's just.
And one thing I want to say about Led Zeppelin that, you know, you always hear about you always hear about Plant, Page, and Bonham, but John Paul Jones, man, was such a piece in that band, man.
He was part of the brains of the band.
I mean,
brought things around. He was actually involved in session work and producing and engineering way before he got with Zeppelin.
Absolutely.
Doing a lot of the pop music back in the day.
And if you go back, I mean, you know, they actually did some Donovan stuff he did a lot of stuff with Donovan, which Jimmy Page did. And by the way, Jimmy Page played on the Who song Can't Explain, which I never knew that.
Huh.
Yeah. You know that song?
Yeah. Dance.
That's Jimmy Page, man. Yeah. He's playing like when Pete Townshend's doing the solo.
Right.
All that guitar in the back is Jimmy Page.
Wow.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I didn't either. But I was listening to him on the interview, and he was talking about all these songs. You know, he played on Goldfinger, the James Bond song, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, all right. So that was Led Zeppelin 4, and we really want to know what's in your collection.
That's right,
Mike.
That's it. Yeah. And hey, look, feel free to drop us a line in the comments. Just mention, if you want somebody to be looked at or listened to or whatever, I'm more than happy to do it. I'm looking for new outlooks, new ways of looking at things. And
I really
just drop us a line.
Yeah, if you got something in your collection that you're like, man, I wish people knew about this album.
Right.
I wish somebody knew a little more about this artist. Let us know, man. I mean, we'll put it on here. We'll put it in what's in your collection, and we'll throw your name out there. We'll give you a shout out, and let us know what you think. Let us know what's in your collection. Let us know what you think about the Allman Betts CD. Again, I gave it a 4. Mike gave it a 3.5. So
yeah,
we're probably going to get hit on that a little bit, but that's okay. I want to do a shout out to Vinyl Days. Thank you for the record. I was really looking forward all week, and they came through. And once again, I want to shout out to Sellers Wine Club. Sellers Wine Club. If you like wine, order you some from there. Great place. Just want to do a shout out. We don't get endorsed by these people. They're just people that we like, and we feel like they should have some acknowledgement. So
I just happen to live out here by them.
Yep, Mike lives out there by him. So everybody that in that area, go check them out. Woodinville, Washington. Get you some wine. You can always order it. They'll deliver it to you. If you're out in Virginia Beach area, go check out Vinyl Days. They've got a lot of cool records in there. I'll be going back. I ran out of money today, or I would have. That's the problem when I go in the store like that. It's kind of like, guitars.
Yeah.
Basics.
Kid and candy store.
Yeah. I got to be careful. So anyway, appreciate y'all checking us out. Let us know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, share, tell all your friends. We appreciate y'all watching.
Exactly.
Until next time, y'all stay safe.
Love and listen to the music.